Hey people, um, kind of new at doing this. I'm not someone who normally likes to sit here and talk to themselves like they look like they're crazy or something, but uh, there's a lot of stuff going on, and uh, for psychology reasons, the best thing to do when you have a lot of thoughts that are kind of eating you up is to either talk to someone about it or write it down and kind of get it out and get those thoughts out so it doesn't keep bothering you, keep you awake at night or whatever. But um, as a society, we really got to stop doing what we're doing right now. This whole thing, this racism thing, this stuff with the left and right, none of it is good for us. None of it is good for society. You're never going to win an argument by telling someone that they're hateful or they're wrong or that their views on the world are backwards or old, antiquated, outdated. You'll never win an argument doing that, and your goal should never be to win an argument. And I think even myself, we get wrapped up into that way too much. We want to win this argument because our ideology is tied to our emotion, and that makes us want to win. It doesn't matter if it's you're arguing with your wife or your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. You have to win the argument, and we need to stop that. So and my first thing that I sort of want to talk about here is the racism thing. Okay, so I'm a white guy, obviously. So therefore, if I say anything about it, I'm a racist or whatever, or could be called a racist. But I think I do a pretty good job of trying to view everything through the lens of history, psychology, sociology, and see why the heck all this is going on and what it's doing to us. So basically, in my view, racism or race is an idea that was created, and I'm going to talk about leftists and rightists. I'm not going to say either, but I think if there's something that's more dangerous to society, it's having a political party use your emotions to control you, because when they do that, humanity has shown that they have the propensity to do very bad, very violent things to each other when emotion is used to control the populace, and that's what one side is really trying to do. And right now they are triggering a response in the other side that is also based on emotion. I would say it's not more rational, but in their view it is rational, because they feel like their life is being attacked and they're being blamed for things that they don't think that they really did. Maybe they did have something to do with it, maybe not, but in their view they feel like their life is being attacked for reasons that are no fault of their own. So anyways, when you think about it, racism is nothing more than giving people an easy identifier, skin color, to justify differences in culture. So there are many, many, many times throughout history where people of the same skin color have done horrible things to each other. The English starved millions of Irish to death during the potato famine, which forced millions more to flee the country when there was plenty of food. They just didn't like the Irish, so they shipped out their food over to feed England, who had plenty of food at that time, and starved a whole bunch of people. They also committed cultural genocide to the Scottish by trying to destroy their culture, murdering people, passing laws that pretty much made it illegal to be Scottish, and no one screams racism about that. It's not racist. The communists did things to their own people because of political ideologies that would allow them to divide people up, even though they're all white, they all the same skin color, but they could divide people up into different tribes or ethnocentric type of stuff that it could justify them going and killing millions of people. And they're all white. It had nothing to do with skin color. It's just the way that one people sees another people. And the fact that that is being used nowadays to create disunity, and I'd say the media is a huge part of it. They want that disunity because the leftists realized about 100 years ago or so that Marx's teachings that people were going to unite create this utopia under economic circumstances was a bunch of bunk. And people won't do it. It doesn't drive their emotion enough to do it. So in return, they came up with a new idea. And that idea was to create emotional things that will get to the core of people, because in their belief, people didn't know what was good for them. Communism is good for you as a people. You should want everyone to be equal. Well, no, you shouldn't want everyone to be equal, because then there's no incentive for the best people to do the best things, to give society the best things. And that's what you want as society. You want people who are the best to create the best things, because as a society you move forward. So they came up with the idea of racism. And yes, racism was not something that was even thought of until a leftist, a communist, who came up with this idea. And so everything, that was the beginning of separating it. And then it became feminism, and now the transgendered thing. As many different groups that they can separate us into to get us at each other's throats and get us to use our emotion to make decisions that will help towards the end goal, which the end goal is to make everything socialist or communist. Which you can say, well, what's so bad about that? Everyone should want everyone to do good, which is great. But historically, if you take the emotion out of it and everything, Western society has done more for contributing to equaling out the tables than anything else has done. You hear about poverty and stuff nowadays. Did you know that over the past 15 years, the worldwide poverty rate has shrunk by 50%? 50% of the people in the world who were thought to be in abject poverty are no longer in it. Now, you're not going to see that because that's not the narrative. They want you to think that, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, which goes into another thing, that there's some kind of finite amount of wealth out there that if you take from one person and give it to another person, there has to be, if someone gets richer, it has to be taken from another person. No, that's not the way it works. If a company is worth $500,000 or $500 million today, it could be worth $100 million tomorrow because of bad decisions that they made. That doesn't mean that someone else gets the $400 million. It just disappears. And that's the way society works. And so anyways, getting back to the racism thing. So racism is the biggest trigger that they found to separate us. Now, here's a funny thing. If you were to ask anybody, any white person or whatever, that considered themselves conservative, even far-right conservative, if you were to ask them, hey, if Thomas Sowell became president, or Clarence Thomas became the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, or if Condoleezza Rice or whatever became president, vice president, whatever, if the smartest people we see out there on the African-American side ran this country, what would they think about it? Most of them would be like, great, that's awesome. We'll have the best people out there doing it, because in our eyes, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with who are the best people. And we don't care who that is. We just want, most people I know that are like me just want to live their life, go about their life. And they want you to do the same thing, go about your life. Because, and this goes into a psychological thing, if you live life as a victim, you will never get over that. You will never find your true potential in life, because you're always going to look at some malevolent force out there that is keeping you in check, whether it's real or whether it's not real. And the fact that one side is trying to teach a whole generation of kids to view life that way is terrible for us as a society. And like I said, this has nothing to do with, hey, everyone should be conservative now. It's not that at all. It should be, think for yourself. You have control of yourself. You could be very poor in this country and become very wealthy. It's just a matter of how you view life. And I would say the proof in that is that people are still willing to storm the border, even though they know Donald Trump's in control and he's going to put them in a jail or whatever, until you prove that you actually have a reason for coming here. But those people are still willing to do that because they understand that if they come over here, they have a better shot than anywhere else in the world. They could try and go somewhere else. They could go to Canada. They could go to other South American countries that are doing, economically, they're doing pretty good, like Brazil, Argentina, and stuff. But they don't. They come here because they know that if you look at this as an opportunity, which is probably the biggest travesty being told to our kids nowadays, is that there's no more opportunity, that they have a better chance of making it than anywhere else in the world, and they do. And historically, so have our ancestors. They came here. Do you know that in the 1800s and the early 1900s, most families, whether you're white, black, whatever, in the United States lived off of less than $1 a day. In today's money, less than $1 a day. That is unbelievable, abject poverty. Now, these are the same people who were ancestors of people nowadays who are being told about white privilege and stuff like that. Well, your skin color, blah, 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 gives you certain privileges. And I will sort of agree that, if I'm pulled over by the cops, I don't really worry about things. At the same token, I also approach it as, hey, let's just get out of this situation. Whatever I did, I'm gonna just say, yeah, whatever. Let's get through this and go on about my way. And at one point in time, I had a different look to me, which made police be wary of me, follow me around and stuff like that, harass me, and it annoyed me back then. But if I wasn't doing anything wrong, I didn't really give a crap, because that's, what are you going to do? I'm not doing anything wrong. You're going to make something up? Okay, well, let's get through this and go to court and figure it out. And I feel sorry for people that do go through that, because I know that it does happen, because there are people out there that hold views, that hey, if you're black, you're doing this, or if you're Hispanic or whatever, you're doing that. But that is a extreme minority of people who are police or border patrol or anything like that. So that goes back to the victim mentality, though, too. If you're pulled over, and you're approaching it already that way, things are probably going to escalate and be bad. So just chill out. Just realize that it's just a situation. It'll pass. Everything in life is a situation that'll pass. And if you approach life with the attitude of, this might be difficult, but it's just a situation. I need to learn from this and move on. Find the next better situation. Put myself in a better spot than I am right now. That was something growing up that I had to realize at one point, because a lot of my friends were going to prison and getting in trouble. I was involved with the police on probation and stuff like that. And I hit a point in my life where I realized, if I don't get out of this cycle, it's just going to continue. So I got to change either my location or my thought. Now, for me, I changed both, and it still took years to get over, to figure out who you are, and or who I was. And there's many different ways people can do that. Personally, I like to read about people in the past, and it gives me perspective on my own thoughts in the present. And and not think of yourself as a victim. At that time, I could have thought, hell, my mom's on welfare, my parents are divorced, they both, smoke pot or whatever, which nowadays is looked on as something pretty mild, but at the same time, the same people who are out there talking about how bad the government is, now they just, they're legalizing pot, and people are like, woohoo! And it's like, okay, so the government that you think is trying to dick you over just gave you pot, and you don't think that they did that so that they could dick you over more by making you stupid? Okay. Yeah, go on with that and see how it works out. But anyways, so when someone says something, it doesn't matter. I don't care what they are, white, black, brown, yellow, I guess, if that's a thing. I've never met an Asian person that looked yellow, but just take everything with a grain of salt. Listen to what they say. You might have something to learn from them. A lot of times people just want to get out what's on their mind. So, for us, white people, I'll say, we have a tendency to do that and think there's nothing wrong with it because there's no malice in what we're thinking. And in realistically, there isn't. We're just trying to see it as we would see it as anyone else. However, you can only look at life through the lens of your own life. So it makes it very difficult to put on someone else's shoes. So if someone disagrees with it, just listen to them. In the same token, if someone white is telling you something the way they see it, just listen to them. It doesn't matter. It's not going to affect you in life. All you have to do is go, okay, yeah, I can see that. I don't agree with it, whatever, and move on. But everyone should work towards not looking at life through the eyes of a victim. It will never do you any good. It doesn't matter. You could get reparations, you could get money, you could get people out there admitting, all the atrocities that have gone, between there were black people that did atrocities to black people, Asians that did it to Asians, white people that did it to white people, Mexican people, Hispanic people that did it to Hispanic people. None of that is looked at as racism because they did it to their own color, which the motivators are exactly the same. It doesn't matter. Like I said before, color was just something easily identifiable that the leftists thought up to create the first emotionally separated groups and get you thinking as a group. And that's another thing too. People that are in these groups, do you ever think of this, that they think you all think alike? And if you're in that group and you don't think alike, you are outcast. There's people who are transgendered that are called transphobic because they don't agree with the norm. Which, what is the norm? Did you poll everyone to see exactly how they thought? Same thing in African Americans. If you are conservative, you're this or that, or you're trying to be a white boy or blah 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 blah. All that stupid stuff. People don't all think alike. Stop thinking that they think alike. Stop putting people in groups that act like they all think alike, because nobody thinks alike. And you might have thoughts that are very similar, the same, but nobody thinks alike. Now they're passing legislation basically saying that all people think alike, and they're going to try and govern speech to that. Well, that's no good for anyone, because you should be able to talk. I'm a fan of Jordan B. Peterson. People have called him a righty. He's not a righty. People on the right have said he's a leftist plant, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's just telling it like it is and how he thinks, But he's very good at identifying these constructs in society and where they came from and how they're affecting us nowadays, and that you have to have uncomfortable conversations in order to get meaningful results out of it. And I can't think of anything more true in life. You know, you can have great conversations with yourself all day in your head, you know, and think you sound like a prophet or whatever, you know, hey, this is all great. But until you talk to someone else about it who disagrees and you have an uncomfortable conversation, it doesn't mean crap. So talk to each other. Stop trying to look at each other as groups. You're not groups, you're individuals. If everybody in this world would look at themselves as an individual, approach life as an individual, which the left says they love the individuals. No, they don't. They love groups. As long as you're an individual in that group, you're fine. But the minute you become an actual individual, you're the enemy. Everyone does better. If you better yourself as an individual, you're going to better the next person next to you. That person's going to better themselves. It's going to be a chain reaction, which is basically the basis of Western civilization. That everyone is an individual and they have the right to be that, and they have the right to find their own happiness, whether it's money, whether it's just peace of mind, whether it's family, whatever. You know, that is the bedrock of Western civilization, and that's why communism or socialism is a threat to that, because they don't look at the individual. It's groups. That will never do anyone any good. And it takes the assumption that everyone is happy at the same level. That's never been true in the history of the world. When you have a socialist or a communist country, you put more people at the same level, which is usually poverty, and you put the wealth even into an even smaller group of people. So people in the Western world will say, oh, there's all these poor people and all these rich people and blah, 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 you know, and all that. Well, we got to distribute that more. Well, guess what? You're going to have even less, a smaller pool of more wealth controlling a bigger pool of more poor. And you can think what you want of that, but go look at the history. It's written over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's how it works out. That's just the way it is. When you go to one extreme, it could be the right extreme too. Look at the fascists in Spain, or fascists anywhere around the world. Fascists in Italy. I won't really call the Nazis fascists, because I don't believe a group that calls themselves the National Socialists Workers Party doesn't know why they call themselves socialist. But anyways, they're still extreme. So any extreme group, you're going to have more poverty and a smaller group of people with all the wealth that control everything, which is the exact antithesis of what people want. And what people want in reality is just to live their lives and be happy, however that is. So have empathy with people, see the problems in the world, correct yourself, and just be the best person you can be, because as a society we will all do better if we try and do that. But anyways, that's my thoughts. If you like it, cool. If not, just think about it. It's not going to affect me either way, because now I got it out and my mind is free for a little while. So anyways, have a good one.